Hi and welcome back to the channel. So today we're out treasure hunting. We're not looking for gold or geocaches, but we're out looking for benchmarks. You may have seen these on the side of buildings and bridges when you're out on a walk and wondered what they are. Some people think they're secret mason's marks, some think they're secret pathways. In today's video we're going to explain what they were, how they were used, the history, how to find them, and how many I can find on a short walk around the area I live in. We cannot talk about benchmarks and a history without talking about the Ordnance Survey. So in the aftermath of the Jacobite Rising of 1745 and the Napoleonic Wars at the turn of the 19th century, the military realised they lacked accurate maps both of the Scottish Highlands and the coastal areas for defence. And so that was one key driver for an Ordnance Survey in order to map out the country. The reason it's called Ordnance Survey is it refers to the fact the agency was created as part of the Board of Ordnance and the military body responsible for weapons and defence. And the second driver was the huge amount of infrastructure and industrial revolution. So canals and railways, they needed to know the topography and precise heights of the land in order to construct them and link them, and a national standard was essential for this. Additionally, plotting contours on maps that visually represent the relief and elevation of a land were all becoming extremely important both from a military and industrial perspective. And as such, what happened was, in 1841, on 21st of June, royal assent was given to an act to authorise and facilitate the completion of a survey of Great Britain, Berwick-upon-Tweed and the Isle of Man. From this act came the first geodetic survey of England and Wales. The Act stated that those acting to complete the survey were authorised and empowered to enter into any estate or property for the purpose of fixing any mark or object to be used in the survey. That mark will become widely known as a benchmark. You can, strictly speaking, under the 1841 Act, still be fined if any person not duly authorised shall take away, remove, or displace or alter the situation of any boundary stone, post, block, bolt or mark which shall be set up and placed for the purposes of this Act. Benchmarks have been around since that time, and some are even earlier, dated back to 1831, before the official 1840 geodetic levelling started. The name benchmark comes from the angle line that was placed into the chiselled line to form a stable bench on which a levelling staff could be placed from which the height could be calculated. The first surveying teams consisted of 8 to 12 men. The core of the team was made up of professional surveyors, both civilian and military, and was supplemented by local unskilled men as the teams moved around the country county by county. The military elements of the survey teams came from the Royal Engineers, which were the officers, and the Royal Sappers and Miners, which were the other ranks. A central part of the project was to establish a consistent, permanent reference point or ordnance datum for all measurements. Initially, they used the Liverpool datum, which was using a benchmark on St John's Church in Liverpool. It was later adjusted to mean sea level, observed in Liverpool's Victoria Dock in 1844. And then finally, in the second geodetic survey, they used a Newlyn datum, taking a more accurate and stable reference point based on continuous mean sea level observations taken at Newlyn in Cornwall between 1915 and 1921, and that became the standard for all of Great Britain. The second and third geodetic surveys of England and Wales took place between 1912 and 1921 and 1951 to 1956. These subsequent surveys, particularly the second and third, aimed to correct inaccuracies and account for variations in land levels, and the use of stable fundamental benchmarks set into solid rock enhanced the network's long-term stability. Whilst the benchmark was fundamental to 20th century mapping, it has since been superseded by satellite-based technology, and the last benchmark was struck in 1993. Today, these benchmarks remain a legacy of Great Britain's mapping history. They offer a direct connection to the painstaking work of surveyors who over nearly 2 centuries created the precise national height system still used today. Now we'll take a look and see how these benchmarks are actually made and used and the different types. So benchmarks were positioned to record the height above the mean sea level against the registered Ordnance Survey datum. Survey teams carve permanent cut marks into stone or brick on stable structures like churches, walls and bridges. They also installed metal bolts and rivets. A broad arrow or theon was engraved below the horizontal line of a benchmark to identify it as government property. On horizontal surfaces, where a vertical cut couldn't be made, a pivot point, which was a circular indentation into which a surveyor would place a ball bearing, a rivet or bolt onto which the surveyor's staff could be positioned, would be used instead. An alternative to the cut mark pivot, rivet, or bolt is the flush bracket. Many people will have seen flush brackets positioned in triangulation pillars, but trig pillars only really started to appear in the landscape from the 1930s with the retriangulation of Great Britain. Flush brackets, however, started to be used by the OS during the Second Geodetic Survey of England and Wales when they set into walls of buildings. They are called flush brackets simply because they sit flush with the surface of the object or structure. Those that are not positioned into a trig pillar are known as non-pillar flush brackets. Each flush bracket contains a unique serial number that identifies the series and date against which they belong and were installed. This one on the Old Hall Hotel is an S series, introduced in the Second Geodetic Survey in 1921. There are three distinct types, those with the S above, below, and as a prefix like this one. To secure its position, each flush bracket has a boot which, when cemented, anchors a bracket into the wall or trig pillar. If the exact height of one benchmark was known, the exact height of its neighbours could be determined by measuring the difference in heights through the process of levelling. This levelling would take place along predetermined primary levelling lines within each county, such as during the first geodetic survey of 1841 to 1860. Primary levelling lines were created by surveyors as a network that followed major roads and canals throughout the country. Teams would measure along these lines from one benchmark to the next. The surveyors used an instrument known as a dumpy level, a type of highly accurate spirit level mounted on a tripod. An assistant held a graduated staff or rod vertically at each benchmark. The surveyor would take a backsight reading on the staff held at the previous benchmark. The instrument was then moved forward, and the surveyor took a foresight reading on the staff held at the new benchmark. The difference between the two readings provided the change in height between the 2 points. This was an iterative process. The team repeated this process of backsight move foresight over hundreds of miles from one benchmark to the next. The height of each new benchmark was calculated by adding or subtracting the measured height difference to the known height of the previous one. To reduce errors, surveyors often used a technique called double levelling or double rodding, where two sets of readings were taken at each setup and the results had to agree within a small tolerance. All measurements were meticulously recorded in a field book, and the Ordnance Survey would then publish these heights on its large-scale county maps. Once these primary lines had been levelled, branch lines or offshoots from these would be levelled to form local networks which extended to meet other networks. Benchmarks networks would be revisited periodically by the Ordnance Surveyors to confirm, correct or note any change in the height in relation to mean sea level, with any changes recorded and noted on subsequent revisions of irrelevant OS maps. To reduce the possibility of errors or because of changes in topography, the local benchmark's height above median mean sea level would be assessed to a nearby fundamental benchmark. This would be sited in stable locations away from possible areas of subsidence, and whose position, location, and height have been subject to highly accurate measurements in relation to the Ordnance Survey datum. So, there are two ways to search for benchmarks. One is to actually look through the database itself. I'll put a link up in the chat. You can also download the entire archive in a CSV file. I use open source like OpenOffice Calc, and it didn't accept it because it's like 500,000 lines. However, you might be able to download it. There's also a list of abbreviations here, which are quite useful. So you can go and look at what all the different abbreviations mean. So if you click on that, there's some examples here. Is it an abutment? It might be an allotment, approximately, avenue. So there's a whole list here which you can download in a spreadsheet, and you'll see why in a moment.
So the other way is you can actually go in and search based on a postcode for a number of benchmarks, or how many are within a certain radius of that postcode. I've noticed you have to just leave a space out of the postcode and it works. So I've searched there for my postcode and it says there are 811. So for each postcode, and you can download this as a CSV as well, it will give you the grid reference, the type, whether it's a rivet, a cut mark, fundamental benchmark, a flush bracket, and a description, which is where these abbreviations come in. So as you can see there, the MBM, if we go and look at this abbreviations list, MBM means new benchmark, which means it was a fairly new one. Okay, it's in, you can see it's a rivet, it's on the laburnums on the west side of a bar gate on the east face at a northeast angle. So that's where it gives you the descriptions, the order, the height, meters above ground, is it a datum or not, what year, the levelling year, and the distance from the address. So you can see a lot of these near me were done in the sort of 50s and 60s, for example. So it gives you quite a bit more information than the other way I'm going to show you how to search that. So really useful information that you can get some good ideas on when these were done and when they were made, for example. Okay, so that's one way of finding them. The other way, which I've been using because I can use it on my mobile, is that there's an interactive map called the OS Benchmark Archive. And as you can see here, they're all shown on a map. On that map, you can, if you want, have the OS grid references, just to show you where the lines are, or you can have satellite imagery, which may well help. I tend to just use the map, and then you can click and hover in and zoom in on the benchmarks. And again, this works on the mobile. So if I zoom in on that, you can now see new benchmark building north side of Howell Lane, southwest angle, 1957. So that was more than likely when it was done. I mean, that's the height above sea level. Obviously, there was a bit more information in the database, so you can use that on your mobile as well, and it's pretty accurate. So it'll tell you all about the information, whereabouts it is, and you can simply navigate. Like I say, I do it on my mobile phone. Take it out with me, or you can plan a route. Some may or may not be there. So that's the two ways that you can find out about benchmarks in your local area and start to go and hunt them. Another useful site is benchmarks.org.uk, which allows you again to search on the OS database, but more importantly, add new ones if you find them. And you can see here when you go to the home page, there's a link to the Facebook group, the top 100 users, and then these are the benchmarks that have been added by people. On my recent walk, which you'll see in a moment, I actually found 2 more. So again, it gives you more information. But again, there are some really good sources of information here you can search. You can search the benchmark database. So again, you can put a description in the grid square within 20 miles, 5 kilometers of, let's say, a postcode here. So if we go S33, 8WQ, and we put within, I don't know, 3 kilometers, that should then search. And you can see it lists them all here. Okay. And then if you can't find it in here, add one in. And then again, 76 benchmarks within 3 kilometers, cut marks on various different areas within and around my village. So that's one way you can search and find them. You can add them. So if you find one and it's not in the database, then you can add the information here. So you can put what type it is it a cut mark, a bolt, brass rod, pivot, etc. The grid reference, the condition, and the structure it's on. So, church, bank, boulder, etc. And then you can save that and it gets logged into the database because, like I say, there are some that are not in there. Some really useful source of information is all of the leveling maps. So, for example, the second geodetic leveling, these are all leveling lines or what they call a primary leveling line. So if you go and click on this one, for example, and you can see the line there that went through, then they're the details of all the benchmarks on that particular line. That's really useful information if you're trying to look at which lines were used and when. Then there are some maps, so you can see all the maps and the sheet numbers, and then there's some help here. A quick search, OS benchmark locator, good reference of waypoints, that style, that type of thing. So really good. You have to register, but it's free. And then you can start to add to this as we find more and more of them. Like I say, I found 2 that are not on the database, and I'll add them. So between this and the Ordnance Survey, you've got 2 really good resources in terms of finding out what benchmarks there are in your area and getting involved in tracking them all down.
So without further ado, let's go hunting. First one on the bridge. This one's on Goose Hill Hall, on the steps. I think this one's been removed. I'm exactly on the mark, but they look like wooden gate posts, so they've probably removed the stone ones, I'd guess. You wouldn't make on a dry stone wall, they're normally on bridges. But the only other way is if it's on one of these. If it is, it's just been worn away. No. No. They do get demolished, unfortunately. So that one we can't find. So we're going to head up the broken road now. And don't forget, folks, take all your shit home with you. So this one is around here somewhere. I'd hazard a guess at one of these stones. Yes. Can you see it there at the bottom? For all the nettles, can just see the lines. So it was on these stone ones, that previous one. And just get these nettles. See it? Always on a stone pillar. Super duper. So the other one had just eroded away, which they will. So anyway, that's pretty cool. And here we start on the old broken road, as it's called. Again, I've done a film on this before. It was the old road from Sheffield to Manchester. Used to fall from below the bottom of Mamtor to about 1979, when it just had landslipped way too much. I put some old clips up of it, and now the main road, or the road, goes up through when it's past the main turnpike and road now is obviously the A57, which has its own issues with landslips. But you can see here the road comes across the bottom. You can see sections that have landslipped there. Well, we're going to go up there once we find this next benchmark, which is along here. This one's definitely gone. It was meant to have been on a wall, but it's all been replaced by fencing. So yeah, some will be here, some won't. So it's interesting to see how many. But yeah, there was a wall here on the east side of the road. This is the east side of the road, but if there was a wall, it's gone. Hey ho, on to the next one, which are around the top of the Blue John Mine. I'm going to cut across, there's a bit of a shortcut through here. But yeah, Mamtor, no doubt be rammed. But stunning views of the Hope Valley. Beautiful. Anyway, I've only got one batch on my GoPro. I charged all 3 up and I think I've only bought one with me. I'll have to check my bag. We'll carry on up here. That's an interesting object, I thought. Old drainage thing or something. Look at that, you fucking tramps. So this is a section of the landslip road. You can see, look how much it's shifted down there. All the different layers of tarmac. I'll show it closer up, but yeah, impressive that. Very impressive. You can see the different layers here. Different layers of tarmac at the top. Then going down to what's probably the old turnpike in the past. Going back several hundred years. This one's on the side of the cafe. Super duper. This is the Blue John Cavern. Well worth a trip. Not for those who've got a weak heart or disposition, because those steps are bloody steep. So that's another benchmark on the side of the cafe there. So we carry on the road now. Here comes a peak sightseer bus. They're well worth a visit. This one meant to be here on the old, before Old Man Tor Road meets this road here, Rushabedge Road. Meant to be a rivet, but it's saying it's here, but clearly whatever was here is gone now. If there was a wall, it's been knocked down, destroyed. Look at this here, there's a sorry. These signs keep getting knocked over. That one's been hit again. There's one in the bush there. Nice little culvert down there, but yeah. So we're going to head up here. There's one just before we go on and cross over the tops. Here we are near Outer Farm, and I believe the next one is on one of these posts. Apparently. I can't see it anywhere though. Again, it could have worn off. Just check on the old Maparoonie. Yeah. On the road, southwest face. This is the southwest of the road. And it's saying on the north face somewhere. But look at it, it's so worn. And these could have been replaced. Yeah, well weather beaten. And normally not too far off the ground. But I can't see anything. One last look. Definitely this is the place where they are, so they must have just been worn, eroded away. Never mind. So the next thing we're doing is there's a footpath over here. There's a little stile through there. It's for them cows, but I'm pretty certain I saw one up there on a stile, and it's not on the map. So let's go and have a look over there. You've got Mamtor and Rushabedge over there. We're headed up here. At the highest point on today's walk, a fantastic 360. You've got Eldon Hill there. In the background behind that is Coombs Moss. Gorgeous hills over there. You come round to Rushabedge. You've got Kinder Scout in the background with Grandslow Knoll. You come down to Mamtor. You can see Crookstone Hill and all that in the background there. Then along Derwent Edge in the foreground you've got the Great Ridge with Backtor and Lewes Hill. Coming around then to Wen Hill. Then you've got all of the edges in the background there. Bamford, Baslow, Kerbaugh, Froggatt, all of that. Then you come around to Chatham Moor, Abney Moor over that way. Over there is Bradwell Moor Trig, camped up there with Phil Ward. Then you're looking down over towards Peak Forest, Fullow and Eam that way. And then back in the very distance over there is Shining Tor, the highest point in Cheshire. What a 360. So I found it, this style here, look at this when you come over this style. A benchmark. Now, this isn't on any database or any map. I'm wondering if maybe it has been repurposed from the one that's missing down there, potentially. It looks like an old snapped bit of a gatepost that comes all the way through here. It's a solid piece. So I suspect that's where it could be come from. But yeah. Look at that beauty. Super duper. Get some pictures of that. Then we're going to head on down here. Join up with a path that goes from Eldon Hill across down to Dirtlow Rake and go and find some more. The other thing that makes me think it's been repurposed, obviously that isn't the wrong profile. They're always vertical like that, that's horizontal. So clearly I'm probably bet me money that was down at the bottom of the road. They took the gate posts out, replaced them because those others looked a bit newer, and then they just brought that up there and put it in a style. Maybe it got hit by a car or something. But anyway, I do like finding stuff like that. Hey, all right, Mr. Sheep. How are you? You all right? Oh. Anyway, let's go down here now. Catch up with the track. think these are all the old minings for the Sliverstone mine. Sliverstone mine, sorry. The 17th century lead mine, lots of them around here. See all the workings across there, but we're following the vein. But yeah, we're going to be heading onto that track down there. So we'll find a few more benchmarks along there. This is the old road that linked all the quarries and mines along here. So Dirtlow Rake, Sliverstone Mine, Eldon Quarry. It goes pretty much from Bradwell through to the road to Sparrow Pit. So yeah, lovely little road. Quintessential country lane. Another one sadly gone. I think it was on this side over here somewhere, but it's all been ripped out with wooden gates now. I've checked every post and pillar. These ones are too new. They're like reinforced concrete. So yeah, that's a shame. But they've not been in use since the 1980s with GPS and whatever. So, and walls have gone, and a shame. Look at that over there though, Wen Helen. The edges looking dark and brooding. Some fantastic skies as well. We're going to carry on down here now towards Dirtlow. There's quite a few down there, and just hoping that they're still there. Are you enjoying that, mate? Is having a good scratch of your arse there? Hi there, mate. Can you ask everyone to subscribe to the channel? If you like hiking, wild camping, history, nature, and the Peak District, just like and subscribe and tick the bell. You'll get notified next time I do a video, and it'll help the channel give it a little kick. I do appreciate everybody who follows me. I've been doing this for about 3 years now, next year I think, and I'm enjoying it, and you know, we have some good banter on the channel and the posts, so don't forget you can also post on my community area of my channel. So you can add your own posts and then we can all interact. So, you know, if you want to share your pictures or anything like that, then by all means, comment on there. I'll reply to nearly all of them. So yeah, thanks for that. And look at that stunning view. Look how dark all the edges are and the sun in the foreground. Absolutely stunning. Absolutely beautiful. And once I got past all the hot spots, I've hardly seen a soul. Just gone to Dirtlow Rake now. I did a film on that a while back. It's the old lead mine that runs all along here. 17th century lead mine, some amazing shafts and stuff in there. Well worth a little trip if you're walking up this way. Just up over to the left on a bit of open access land. Look at the light. This is why I like autumn. You get the stunning skies, all the contrast of shadow and light. Absolutely beautiful if you don't go on your arse. But the next benchmark should be at the end of these woods here on Dirtlow Rake itself, by the looks of it. Hoping it's on the south east side of one of these stones. I'm guessing this one is the older one. Oh, they're so weathered. That's southeast, that sort of way. I can't see anything at all there. Possibly could be something on there behind that hinge. This one looks too modern. But we'll just do a quick double check. Yeah, too modern that. So it would have been on that one. It's probably just been, again, worn away over time. Sometimes helps if you step back a bit. But yeah, I can't see anything on that one. Bit of a shame. On to the next one, there's several down here.
Might be this one here. So I can't find anything there. Let's see if there's anything on these. Normally gate posts or big posts like this that they tend to put them on. But they aren't where they were. No. Again, they may well have eroded away. Oh no, I think that's it there. You can just vaguely see a line, possibly. I wouldn't like to say normally there's 3 lines underneath, but that is so well worn. So I'm not sure on that one. Anyway, never mind, we've got a few more to go. It's a bit of a guessing game. I mean, these records must show where they originally did it when they put them out there. So I'm guessing things have happened a lot in the last 100 and getting on for 200 years. So anyway, we're joining the road now. Sig 8 off Dirtlow Rake. Lovely and still. Fantastic day. So I'll catch up with you when we find the next one. I think a lot of these are just not going to be found. There's meant to be a rivet around here somewhere, but I can't see them putting a rivet on a wall like that. I can't find any sign of it. Look at that shadow. There it is. Marmite. Now apparently there's one where these walls are at a junction of these walls here on the right hand side. I'm not holding much hope. A lot of these don't seem to be around, but we'll go and have a look anyway. I wonder if it's here. I think it is. On this stone. Underneath all that ivy. Is there a benchmark? Possibly. Can't see where else it will be. There's so much ivy on here. I think there's a cut mark there. 1, 2, 3 lines there. See it? Super duper. Get some pictures of that. Another one in the bag. So there's meant to be a rivet here. Southwest side of a stile, which is this side. North side of the road. I cannot see anything. They were like a brass thing, so not beyond the wit of man that some fuckers had it away. Let's go and just one more check on the other side. Got really excited and I've not seen one of the rivet ones. I've seen the brass plaques on trig points, because some of those have them. And I've seen obviously a lot of the stone cut ones, which is the bulk. But there's no rivet here, mate. Sadly. Oh well, never mind. Crack on. Down the hill, back down the Sigget. Look at that old Pindale quarry there. Absolutely stunning in the sun. Look at that. Someone's done a... Oh, I thought someone done some graffiti. It's a rowan bush. Stunning evening. Absolutely beautiful. Anyway, on to the next one. Another one gone. There was a wall here at some time probably, but it's all fencing now. So we'll crack on down the hill. We will find a few more when we get back to the village. Who cares if we don't find any? It's an absolutely beautiful day. I've been out for 3 hours. My longest walk for a while actually. So feeling good for getting out and about. Takes your minds off things a little bit, doesn't it? Let's get out in the countryside, just focus on something different for a little bit. But 7.5 miles I think it is in total. But we're just heading back down the Sig 8 now. Back into... Ooh. My granddaughters love that. Always do that and they'll watch that for hours. So yeah, heading back down now. Some lovely views there across Winnell and the Great Ridge. Superb. Looks like there's a crowd on Mamtor as usual. Better for a sunrise and a sunset, guys. You want to be able to surprise the view, or Wind Hill or somewhere like that for a sunset. Anyway, this one we're going to find next, hopefully, is on a piece of living rock. Up there. Just looking here is like, I can't, it's just a nightmare trying to see if there's anything there, but I just saw a bit of iron. What looked like iron up there. But no. So yeah, it's around here somewhere on living rock, but it's so moss covered. I think you're just going to struggle to find it without breaking your neck, which is a shame. I wouldn't have thought it had been too far from the road. But yeah. That is a shame. We're in the right area. Checking out on the, we've probably gone past it a little bit. So if it's anything, it's around here, but it's just covered in grass now. Grass and trees. I can't see anything there, sadly. So yeah, another one that's going to lay hidden in the folds of nature. We're heading back down to the village, so we will find some more. There's 2 or 3 I want to do in the village on the other side of the village. And cool trees. Anyway, let's head down here. There's meant to be one on the east side of this stile. East is that way. I can't see bugger all, mate. On there whatsoever. If there is, it's quite highly corroded. What a... I know you put it up here, I don't know, but anyway. Just gonna have a check round here. It's just too badly corroded. I mean, it's limestone at the end of the day, I think, probably. So it's not going to weather well over a couple of 100 years. That's a bit of a shame. There might be something here. Hard to tell. But this is a steep bit here. Anyway, never mind. That is a shame. Sometimes it's you step back and look. Yep. I think I can see it. See, always step back. See at the bottom? Oh, well spotted, Stu. See that cut mark? And there's the arrow. Oh. See, sometimes you get too close, you can't see them. Absolutely brilliant. Well chuffed for that one. As soon as you step back, you could see it. Like the cut across the bottom, but close up, you couldn't see that. Just goes to show you. This one's going to be on here, underneath the moss. Again, take a step back. It might be there towards the top. But if not, it's definitely underneath that moss. I can see a cut mark, I think. But I don't want to go and scrape the moss off. It is a living thing at the end of the day. But yeah, that'll be where the other one is. On the end of that wall. Don't think it's on the end of this one. Could be on the end of this one as well. But they're just covered in moss. So I'm not going to disturb that little ecosystem. That's another one potentially in the bag. Well, apologies for lack of continuity, as it's the next day now, but I'm just nipping down to Hope to get a couple of other benchmarks, one which is a flush bracket, which is quite a difference. So I'm going to track that down. But Hope's just behind me here. We're following the Pindale Road. I'll just catch up with you when I get into Hope. Just seen one on this bench post as we walked past. I don't recall that being seen on the map. So let's take a picture and document this one. Look at that, not a breath in the air, judging by the beardometer. Right, squirrel keeps dropping nuts. Yeah, that one is on the map. Unless it didn't move. Let's try again. That was a nightmare. Bloody beard. Anyway, Yeah, that one there at the Pindale Outdoor Centre. I don't know why. I just thought, you know what, just check around just in case you can see one that's not been marked, because you never know. Check any posts as you walk past them, because that's what they used to use, gate posts, church buildings, that sort of thing. And you know what, there was one there with a little plaque saying how high above sea level. I'll check, see if that's genuine, or if it's not, if it's something that's been moved. But if not, that's one that's not in the database. So I'll get that added to the database. Boom, result. Anyway, just heading down into Hope now. So I'll catch up with you when we get there. Yeah, sadly this one ain't here now. Looks like they've ripped up the front, whatever post it was. So we check down here. But yeah, it's not on them. Nope. Here we are, just coming into Hope now. And this benchmark is on the Old Hall Hotel. You can see the benchmark in the bottom left hand corner. So there you go. So that is called a flush bracket, and that's mounted in the bottom of the Old Hall Hotel. Absolutely fantastic. So some of these are on private houses like the one behind me, so we won't get a chance to see that, number 48. There's meant to be one on this railway bridge. Let's see if we can find that. You can see this one here, right on there, at the bottom of that buttress. See? So this is your standard one. Footmark and the 3 arrows pointing upwards, really clearly marked there. So that's another one down. So the next one is also on a private property on a farm on an outbuilding, so we won't get a chance to get down to that one. The next one is on Spittal Bridge, just as you come into Castleton. So I'll catch up with you when we get there. There's another one that's not on the old, what's the name? Database. Can you see that? That's 2 we found. Tell you what, just keep an eye on gate posts, because that is another benchmark. Take a picture of that. Add that to the database. I might be onto something here, you know. Because it seems a bit odd that there's big gaps. You see some roads and there's loads of them. Others you hardly see any. So it's always worth checking out any gate posts, solid stone structures like those on the way when you're on the rounds. You may well spot a few that haven't been documented yet. Boom. Remember right, it's on this end parapet. We'll just check. Dice with death. Is that this end or the other end? There it is. Just see the cut mark and the 3 arrows there. Well worn. Well, lovely spot. The next benchmark is on this post here. See it? Just there, very faded. We can just see that. The next one is down there. The last one is on the corner of this house. Just around the corner here. There you go. It's classic cut and the 3 arrows. Last one of the day. So there we have it, back home. So that's a video on Ordnance Survey benchmarks. The history, what they were used for, why they used them, where to find them, and then how many I could find on a local walk, including several that were not even on the database. So there's a new little hobby for you, hunting benchmarks. Anyway, catch you on the next one.